Hello everyone and welcome to the Chase Life Podcast, episode 5 with Rachel and David Godfrey. Now today we're going to be talking about something that's kind of a little bit topical, and this is on body image, body confidence, body shaming, and why people get triggered online. And we're also going to talk a little bit about toxic relationships and why people get triggered, in inverted commas, by other people. So this is a massive topic, and this is something quite topical because there was images of Adele that came out this week and her massive weight loss. And I know that certainly some UK journalists came out and said some pretty nasty things about her, obviously sharing their own insecurities when seeing an image of clearly somebody who's been very successful in weight loss. And we're going to talk today a little bit about why this happens, and something a lot of our clients really struggle with when they come to us at Chase Life is body image. And it's probably, if not the underlying factor in self-sabotage. Correct me if I'm wrong. But let's dive into that and let's just start with body image before we go into body confidence.
Cool. So body image at the end of the day is it's a relationship with yourself and with your body that we really need to create the platform and the framework necessary for somebody to then go after the goals that they want. And quite oftentimes people struggle with being triggered, quote unquote, by other people. And some people are in families or have people in their lives who are, as they would language it, body shaming them. Whereas other people feel like they get body shamed online. And other people who feel like they get triggered online by other people's images and so forth.
And this can work both ways, right? When we talk about body shaming, we're not just talking about if somebody's overweight being body shamed because they're overweight and they're fat. I personally have been body shamed, if you like, on the same image for being too fat, too thin, too muscular, too this, too that. I just can't win. And, I posted actually one of my own body transformations after I had Xavier, our first son, or only son, last year. In fact, it was almost a year ago today where I did a 6-month body transformation. And I got body shamed on that, saying, well, how, you shouldn't be posting images like that because it sends out a wrong message to mothers. And as if to say, like, I should be hiding my own results and I should be hiding my own body.
Yeah.
So it does work both ways.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, body shaming is totally a conversation about feeling judged. That's the only conversation really going on, and people feel judged in all manner of ways. So I think one of the first places to start, and I was actually asked this question yesterday on the Reset podcast when I was interviewed for them, and they asked me specifically with regards to a lot of families and the environments that a lot of people are in when they feel like they're being body shamed by other people. And I said, well, I think one of the most important shifts for a lot of people to understand is that I totally get that it's challenging being in an environment like that. I'm not negating that it can be confronting and difficult, especially if other people are criticizing you a lot of the time. However, the number one biggest transformation that is going to create the life and the experience of life that people really want isn't changing other people. It's not getting other people to stop body shaming you. And that was kind of how the question was phrased at the time, because that's obviously what a lot of people kind of feel like they need to be dealing with, is how do I address this person, whether it's a family member or somebody else, how do I address them to stop feeling like I'm being body shamed by people? And so I said the biggest shift is that actually it's not being judged by other people, it's that you judge yourself. And if you really get that, that is the path to true freedom. Because if we eliminate all judgment of self, imagine that that's gone, that now you totally and completely and unconditionally love and accept yourself. Now, when somebody else comes along with their opinion, either positive or negative, doesn't really hold any emotional weight over you anymore. And sure, when it comes to positive things, it's nice to be complimented and for people to say nice things to you. But you can be grateful, but it doesn't sway you, and you don't need it.
No, I think you do certainly become like quite toughened to the experience. Obviously in my career of 15 years as a trainer, and especially going online, I think I started online in 2010. 10 years ago now, starting posting videos on YouTube, and obviously then started getting comments about my physique, positive and negative. You do certainly become hardened to the process, where when people say things now, it's like it's neither here nor there. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. And so I think if you are, say for example, in a family environment where as a woman, you're supposed to look a particular way. Certain cultures expect you to be curvy or expect you to be very slim. We've had clients coming from all sorts of cultures, and some of our clients are very slim, and there's pressure on them to be curvier, actually. Because that's what's considered sexy in a woman in a particular culture. And of course, in Western cultures, if somebody's overweight, there can be sometimes a lot of pressure from the family to lose weight. But you do become hardened to the process. And I think that, that's what you were talking about when it comes to, you have to develop yourself so that these comments don't affect you anymore.
So even deeper than that, I think when somebody becomes hardened to something using that kind of language, it's a defense mechanism that can become very strengthened. It's almost like and it can absolutely work, and it can be part of one of the stepping stones to emotional freedom. But it's still built on the foundation of, I've had a negative reaction as my response now, instead of going into upset, taking it personally, now it's fuck you. Right. Yeah. And it's that kind of defense mechanism. But even then, if I have that kind of, instead of being defense, now I'm going offense, it's still built on this necessity to create this hard external shell that protects me.
For sure. I've definitely been there. That's definitely a phase that I went through probably even as close to 5 to 7 years ago. I definitely had this fuck you attitude. When somebody, either body shamed me or, criticized me in any way, coming from a background in perfectionism, that was definitely a defense mechanism that I had, and especially being in a male-dominated industry.
Yeah.
Coming from strength and conditioning, growing up with two brothers and things like that. And, this is something that we were talking about before the show. I actually like and appreciate very direct communication now. And I guess sometimes that can also come across as hard, and I don't necessarily mean it that way.
Yeah.
But that's what I've learned to do. And, you go through it, and it's certainly a phase, and, it does work until you learn to get to the stage where it does become like water off a duck's back.
Yeah. So I think it's a process of peeling back the layers of the onion and, continual kind of personal growth and personal evolution. But I think the place of true emotional freedom is where you don't even have that fuck you response anymore.
No.
Because at the end of the day, you realize that judgment says everything about the person doing the judging and nothing about the person being judged. Why? Because 8 billion people on the planet, there's 8 billion different sets of values. But we judge other people based on our values. We don't judge other people based on their values. And so what that means is that it's never personal. It's no matter how personal it can feel, it's never personal, because it's all about that other person's world and their own belief systems and so forth. So
it's also kind of exhausting, honestly.
Yeah,
if I rewind back
right.
to being so defensive about whatever it was. It's not not just my body. It could be anything from work to whatever I was doing in my daily on my daily stuff. And I was defensive about my own values and opinions and thoughts about myself as well.
Yeah.
And so, it's an exhausting place to be. And then that perpetuates a huge amount of stress, a huge amount of overwhelm, and then it like triggers this perfectionism cycle even more. So it just basically feeds into this loop of negative pattern after negative pattern after negative pattern.
100%. People are walking around with their guard up constantly. It's like, where's the next threat coming from? Where's it coming from? Where's it coming from? And so, so that breeds into feeling triggered all the time, bleeds into perfectionism or overanalyzing, overthinking everything, and all manner of other things. So, I think when it comes to body image, that is the ultimate destination, is whereby you totally and completely love and accept yourself. And so now other people's opinions just don't matter, positive or negative.
So it says a lot then, let's look at these photos of Adele come out. She's wearing this like tight black dress. She looks great. There are comments going around saying, oh, she's now too thin. Like, that's such a low level comment, really. And it says everything about, and actually one of the quotes from this journalist, I can't recall who wrote it, but she said something was to the effect of, it's photos like this, like the photo of Adele, that make women like me feel insecure.
Yeah.
Well, hang on a minute. Where is the ownership there? Because there is a total lack of it as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's interesting when people get triggered.
I mean, God forbid you see an image that triggers you. Like, what are you going to do? Like, walk around with rose-colored spectacles on? Like, seriously.
I know.
Like, there is amazing filters on social media called block, delete, unfollow. Yeah. Like, where is the ownership there? Even at that basic level, like, if you're feeling triggered by something, why on earth are you subjecting yourself to these images? Yeah. Come on. This is like the number one thing, like the very first step to taking full ownership.
Yeah.
But like, God forbid you see something like that. Oh my gosh, seriously, like, where do we go with this?
It's like when somebody comes onto your page and...
Come and offend yourself on my page, please.
Exactly, yeah. That you've gone out of your own way to come onto my page, invest your own time, effort and energy to offend yourself. Which is just, it's... And I phrase it that way because there's going to be people listening potentially who have done that, and I want to make fun and light of the behavior. And one of the paths to emotional freedom is when we can see what we have been doing and the traps that we've gotten ourselves stuck in, and then we can laugh at what we used to be doing. It's not laughing at you or your sense of identity. It's not. It doesn't define you. That's just a habitual emotional pattern that you had. But when you can laugh at it and you go, oh my God, that is exactly what I've been doing the whole time. Actually, you're totally right. That's completely ridiculous.
It's like me looking back at like my former self, like being so defensive about things that just don't matter. Like I sit here now and I laugh about it because I recognize it's the behavior. It's not me. Yeah. It doesn't define who I am. And, that's okay.
Yeah, and actually that wasn't even the route that I was going to go on today. But I think it's important for us to be able to differentiate learned behavior from identity. And a lot of people are constantly obsessing and worrying over what if I'm not enough? And it's this fixed mindset of either I'm either enough or I'm not. And I have to constantly scrutinize what's happening in the world and what I'm doing and the feedback that I'm getting from other people as evidence as to, am I enough or am I not? And it's this constant perpetual question that's going round and round and round. Instead of realizing that, it's not even a question we need to be asking. It's like walking around obsessing over what if gravity fails and we all float off into space. It's a waste of time, but you can worry about anything if you ask the question over and over enough.
So, going back to this idea of like people getting triggered online, particularly by particular images and, this whole thing about unrealistic expectations when it comes to, for example, body transformations and things like that. Why do people abdicate responsibility to the outside to make them feel good? Like it's like people are searching for things in the outside or people to act a certain way, or they have to see certain things, or certain behaviors have to be met to make them feel better about themselves.
Yeah, I think this is something that all human beings go through at some point. And I think, and again, there's emotional freedom to be found in that as well, to realize, wow, I'm not alone in this. And actually everybody else has done this too. I've done it, you've done it, and everybody's done it. And what happens is, we're born into the world as babies, we grow into children, adolescence, and then through into adulthood. And as we're going, we're trying to figure out how to meet our emotional needs, and we don't have a blueprint. Nobody ever gives us a blueprint. And literally every second of the day, we're trying to figure out, how do I escape pain and achieve pleasure? So, for example, you're growing up, and even though your parents may well love you unconditionally, we can learn that their love is conditional. That's not what's actually going on, but that's our interpretation at that age as that child. Why? Because, well, when I'm a good boy or a good girl, then mum and dad treat me nicely, which I interpret as love. And when I'm a bad boy or a bad girl, then I get punished, which I interpret as the removal of love. It's very easy for children to interpret things that way. And so as a result, it's very easy for us to then start questioning, am I doing enough in order to be enough? And I think that's a trap that a lot of people get into. And then that leads on to all manner of other things. So comparison, for example, we're constantly, now we don't have that sense of certainty as to, I'm just inherently enough as I am. And so I need to find out if I'm enough based on what's happening in the world or based on what I'm doing. And that leads to comparison with other people, fear of failure, all manner of other things.
And do you think people think that they're enough based on their habitual feelings and behaviors? So, let's take it back to basics. Let's talk about toddlers, because this is very timely for us. We have a 2-year-old. He's just turned 2, Xavier, and he is really struggling with he's a little person with very big emotions at the moment, and he's really struggling to learn how to cope with his new big emotions. And I have noticed one of the things that Xavi does is when he has a tantrum, he always comes to me saying, "Mummy, mummy, mummy, mummy cuddle," because he wants me to take away these feelings. And I think sometimes as adults we do this, and I think we've all been there at some stages. We've gone to someone or something to take away the feelings that we don't want. For some people it's food, for some people it's alcohol, for some people it's like drugs, sex, gambling, whatever it is. It's going to something to take away those feelings, when actually all we're doing is behaving like a toddler. And it's okay to feel an overwhelm of emotion sometimes. We just need to learn that those overwhelming feelings of emotions, they don't define us, and they're not actually us. It's just a feeling. It's come on really quickly, and it's probably going to pass really quickly as well. And so next time you have these overwhelming feelings of emotions, just think about my little 2-year-old Xavi coming to mummy saying, "Mummy cuddle, mummy cuddle." And I feel so bad for him, because I want to take away these feelings for him. But actually, I also know a fair bit about human behavior now, and he's got to learn to manage his own feelings. And, I just give him space. I let him do his thing. I'm always there for him. I don't ignore him. And then when the feelings have started to pass, then okay, I can come in and help. But I think a lot of people feel like this.
Yeah, it's super cute, and it's
so hard to watch.
And it is tough to watch. But when you watch it through the lens of, sometimes the act of unconditional love isn't always doing what somebody wants.
For sure.
It's like if you've got a toddler who's going, "I want more sweets, I want more chocolate," over and over and over and over again, we'll keep giving them what they want. That's obviously not demonstrating love, right? So, but anyway, Xavi is literally right at the beginning of his journey in learning how to self-regulate. He's literally just started that, and as you said, he's just turned 2. His brain's developing these ways where all of a sudden there's all of these emotions and he's no idea how to handle it. And so he goes, "Mummy, mummy, mummy, mummy cuddles, and he gets mummy cuddles, and then he realizes, I still don't feel better. And then
he'll go to daddy.
And then they'll go to daddy, or he'll be like, "Opta, Opta," which is helicopter. Like, he's absolutely obsessed with helicopters right now. And so he'll be like, "Opta, Opta," and then like that won't do it because he's got a whole bunch of toy helicopters. And then he'll be like, "Watch Opta," and then he'll just keep going one thing after another. Like, what's the thing that's going to fix this for me? Where is it? And he's looking in the outside world, and he's got to go through that process of learning how to self-regulate.
But how many adults do this unknowingly, by the way? Like, if you're listening to this going, "God, this kind of sounds true as to my behavior. Like, I feel so bad about this." Don't feel bad about it. You didn't know before, but now you do.
Yeah. So our one of the things that we teach our clients, and because this is such a massive topic, obviously it's beyond the scope of a podcast really to dive into how you do this and how it functions and stuff. And so I am asking for an element of just trust me, this is the case. But our emotions don't happen to us. We do our emotions. It's just unconsciously learned patterns of thought and patterns of emotion, patterns of behavior. And I emphasize the word unconsciously as in you're doing it, but you're doing it outside of your awareness, if that makes sense. So, but if you can just bear with me and take that leap of faith and just believe in what I'm saying, that it's something that you do. It's not something that you have. It's not something that happens to you. It's something that you've unconsciously learned to do. And we start from that place. Then if I go to a place of, let's say, self-pity, and I stay in a place of feeling sorry for myself, then that can be an emotion. Then if I stay there for a prolonged period of time, that can then become a mood. And then maybe after a while, I start becoming addicted to that because I've learned that when I'm in emotional pain, other people pay attention to me. So they make me feel special, or they give me what I interpret as feeling loved, and it could become a quick and easy route for me to get attention from other people, or for me to get love or connection from other people. And I could then ultimately become addicted to my emotional pain because that's a reliable way for me to get attention or love out of other people.
So as an example, like let's relate this to images perhaps you see online. So you might see an image online of somebody who's had successful weight loss, or somebody who's done well in business, and you feel a sense of self-pity with that. You then turn around and you might say something that's perhaps not particularly positive about that person to feel connection, that other people feel the same way. So as an example, in the case of Adele, this journalist, and I'm sure other people as well, have come online and said, well, actually, I feel bad. This lady is making me feel bad, so therefore I'm going to say, photos like this make me feel insecure about myself. Who else does too? And of course, then she's going to have a tribe of other women saying, "Oh yes, me too." Exactly. And therefore, then there's this connection that happens. They then feel better about themselves, which inevitably then perpetuates the cycle.
It meets a whole bunch of emotional needs, right? I get love and connection with other people. I feel special and significant and unique. I feel emotionally validated for my opinion and justified in feeling the way that I do, and so forth. But just to kind of close the loop on learned emotions, oftentimes people say stuff like, "It's just who I am. It's innate. It's part of my nature." Well, using the self-pity example, if I've learned to do that if I do that once, it's an emotion that I'm doing. But then if I do it for a prolonged period of time, it can become a mood. Then after that, it can become a temperament. And then after that, it just becomes so habitual that it becomes part of my quote unquote personality. It becomes a quote personality trait. And it's very easy to label that as part of my identity. This defines me now. And people often say things like, I'm just a stressed person. I'm just a stress head. I'm just naturally an anxious type of person. I'm just ... And instead of realizing that doesn't define you. And I think there's huge power and personal growth to be had on the other side of realizing that just because you may have had habitual responses or emotions or things that you've struggled with that you don't like, it doesn't define who you are. It's just a learned behavior and it's a learned response. And your core, I see people as just having this infinite pure light and potential within them. And that's the real them. That I think I kind of see the world of personal growth and personal development as to stripping back all of the invisible cages that we've put on ourselves and revealing who we really are at our core, which is just infinite pure potential. And so that's your identity, and then all of the other stuff around it is just learned behavior.
I was, rewind 10, 15 years ago, I would literally be proud of the fact that I was a perfectionist. I thought that this was the thing that was driving my success. I had no idea. And actually, it was only when I started doing a lot of identity work that you realize this stuff is fluid, right? And these behaviors that perhaps once served you to a certain extent don't serve you anymore. Well, if you don't take on this idea that your identity can be created, well, then you're basically just going to remain stuck.
Yeah, exactly. So I think when it comes to helping people with body image, one of the fears that people have when we go back to the conversation about self-love and self-acceptance is that a lot of people then feel like, well, if I completely accepted myself and my body, then I wouldn't be motivated to change. Like, surely I have to be dissatisfied and unhappy with where I'm at right now in order to be motivated to grow into the version of me that I want to become. And nothing could be further from the truth, actually. So self-love and self-acceptance doesn't mean that you can't have exciting goals in the future. But one of the biggest differences is that have exciting goals, whether it's health, fitness, body transformation, weight loss, improving your performance, or whether it's in the world of relationships, business, finance, whatever. Have exciting goals that you want to move towards. But the difference is that you are chasing those things because it's fun for you, because that's an extraordinary quality of life for you, not because you need those things in order to finally feel like you're enough, or in order to finally be able to accept who you are as a person.
And, this all comes down to then body confidence, because people think that when I look a certain way, then I will be confident in my body. And what we've found to be true with all the hundreds of clients that we've worked with at Chase Life and the thousands of clients that I've worked with, over the past 15 years, is that if you're coming from that place of when I look a certain way, then I will be body confident. Well, that's great. You can hustle your way there. But then what happens is that you're then so terrified of losing it that you still don't feel confident anyway.
Yeah.
So it has to come from a place of love rather than a place of beating yourself up to get to this place.
It's doomed for misery. The best, I say best case scenario, it's not even the best case scenario, but what most of our former clients would have considered to be the best case scenario would be you purely through suffering and hating through the process, you get there. You get that body that you're after, but then you realize that you still don't feel good enough. You're still stressed and overwhelmed, and you've learnt to hate the whole process anyway. And none of it, and it's kind of that realization of is this it? And that so frequently leads to rebound. So, but even then, that's a tiny minuscule minority of people who actually even get there in the first place. The most likely scenario is that you're going to repetitively sabotage yourself over and over and over again. Why? Because what the inevitable consequence means is that 24/7 you are stuck not feeling good enough.
I can 100% relate to this from a business perspective. And it's funny because I think we put out an ebook in 2016 called Is This It? And this was based off my story and my feelings. And I've only just remembered it now. From a business perspective of setting business goals, actually achieving them. And then I got to the stage where I was like I would literally say to myself, is this it? Like, I put all of this hard work, graft, and effort into achieving these amazing results in business and serving these like beautiful clients that I had, and everything on paper was amazing. And I still felt, is this it? And people feel like this in business, in relationships. All the boxes ticks in their relationships. Their body, is this it?
Yeah.
And that's why, a conversation like this is so important, to get somebody to realize that when you do things for the wrong reasons, you're always going to feel that way.
Yeah. So a successful body transformation has to, and when I say successful, one that lasts forever, has to come from a place of self-love to even more self-love, as opposed to self-hate to less self-hate, which is what most people are trying to do. They're trying to hate themselves skinny. And that is just doomed to self-sabotage over and over and over again. One
of the things actually that I talked about on my Instagram stories a couple of days ago was the process of training and the immense satisfaction that comes in the discipline. And I see discipline as very different to forcing yourself to do something and hating your way through the process. Discipline is about doing something because you know what the outcome is going to be. And let's be honest here, not every training session is going to be all sunshine and rainbows. In fact, most of them are not. Most of them are hard. But you do them because you have the self-respect and you have the standards. in order to follow through and be disciplined, because the results and the immense satisfaction comes on the other side of that. It doesn't come in the moment. And I think this is where a lot of people fail as well in a body transformation, is because they hate their training. There's no real upside. They're struggling with the results. So therefore, they think, well, what's the point? Whereas if you have the discipline and you know that the satisfaction is in the discipline and the results come as a result of that, it makes it so much more satisfying.
That's an amazing distinction that I think is going to be so important for people to realize, is that the only form of motivation that lasts long term is pleasure, as in being emotionally rewarded when you do the behaviors that you want to do more of. And so many people have learnt to only follow a diet or a training plan because if they don't, bad things are going to happen. I think I've mentioned this before, right? People get stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like, I hate being overweight. I hate dieting. Which one do I hate the least? So even when they're on a diet, they've learned to attach unpleasant emotions to the process, as opposed to having clarity over what is the value that this adds to my life. And this being one of my highest values that just relates to literally everything that I do and every part about me and who I am as a person. And why would I not want to do that? Because that's just an extraordinary quality of life for me. But one of the reasons why people can't sustain motivation is that the only form of pleasure that they can actually put their finger on is going on holiday once a year and feeling confident in a bikini. Well, what about the rest of the time? We want you emotionally rewarded every single day, and not just every single day, every moment throughout the day that you do things that are congruent with this outcome. Every time that you do your meal prep, every time you stop and interrupt a busy task to eat a meal, every time you go to the gym and work out, we want you emotionally rewarded for those things when you do them. Now, that's not to say that there aren't going to be times when you have to suck it up and you have to push through what people traditionally see as being discipline. But at the end of the day, if you're not being emotionally rewarded, then it's not going to last. And it's that positive reinforcement. If you look at the difference between positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement, it's positive reinforcement that's going to make you want to do it forever.
And it's funny because one of the things that I said is, like, I sometimes like it better when it's harder. And that, to me, when you get that level of discipline, I get more emotionally rewarded when it's tougher and I can follow through.
Yeah, so let's look at why that is. Well, if I, rather than kind of doing this through questions, which might take a little bit too long, if I can just make some assumptions and try to quote unquote diagnose, but my interpretation would be that, well, first of all, you've had a lot of role models in your life who have achieved things through hard work. Secondly, you've experienced that for yourself. You've also experienced what it's like to work harder than other people and achieve where other people haven't. And so there's that sense of significance from it. There's also that excitement about the feeling that you get when it works. Like the number of times that, for example, in our business, and there's been some kind of just monumental technological or operations nightmare to unravel, to figure out, and you're in the middle of it, and I'm looking at it going, that looks like my worst nightmare. And even though it's tough, I can see that you actually express that you enjoy it, because you've had enough experience of knowing what it's like to break through on the other side. And again, you're excited about getting that feeling. It's kind of like,
honestly, it's a drug for me. Like I do like putting myself in situations where I wouldn't necessarily say problem solving, because I do have this sense of sometimes, oh my God, here we go again. But I also feel like, okay, like if I know something has to be done, like I'm seeing it through to the end. Like there is no quitting. And don't tell me that I can't do it, because I will do it even faster. And I will get to the end, and it will be even more satisfying. Exactly.
So there are so many emotional rewards that you get. There's the excitement about finally breaking through, and also the anticipation of not knowing exactly when that's going to happen.
Never know.
So that's exciting,
It could
right?
be days, it could be weeks, it could be months, it could be years.
Yeah.
But when you get it, it's so good.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that, and then there's like the sense of pride, and there's there's also a sense of identity in terms of like, I am a hardworking, driven business owner who solves problems and breaks through. So it's aligned with your identity. One of the biggest factors that dictates people's consistent behavior is the need to be consistent with your identity. That's one of the reasons why you're so fascinated and love identity work, is that it's one of the most powerful parts of the transformation. You become the person first. That's what then creates the transformation later. So anyway, I'm not quite sure how we got onto all of this.
I don't know.
This is
probably like another topic for another day. I actually did want to do a podcast on this, like around sort of fitness and stuff, but we kind of tied it in here because it does relate to body confidence. Because, and here's how it all ties in, is that confidence is a skill, and you need to practice that skill. So it's in those times, it's in those moments when shit is hard. Like you keep going, because it's in that discipline that comes the satisfaction in the result at the end of it, which then loops back to the confidence in your identity of I can and I will. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says or does, you know that you are confident in any given situation to do whatever task is at hand, whether that's build a business, do a body transformation, redefine your relationship. It's completely irrelevant. It's all the same thing. So body confidence and confidence in general comes into this big concept of do the work, see it through, the skill of confidence gets improved, and the loop gets stronger and stronger.
Love it.
Okay, I think that's a really good place to end this podcast. So guys, if you have a question for the podcast, because we do Q&A podcasts as well, please email podcast@chaselifeconsulting.com. And if any of the stuff that we've talked about today resonates with you and you want to get on a call with us to chat more about anything to do with body confidence, body shaming, body image, how to stop getting triggered, we do a lot with binge and emotional eating, stress and overwhelm, then you can book a call with us. All you need to do is go to chaselifeintensive.com/call and you can book in there. But if you have enjoyed this, please rate and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you are listening. And remember to always go out and play beyond the rules and chase life.